Hi, this is Paulette from Magical Needle, and today I'm going to do another tutorial on how to do puff applique. So I'm doing an art quilt, and this is a full moon, and I want to give this full moon more dimension so it stands out. So what I did was I cut out some shapes. First I printed out some round shapes, found the size I want. I think this one is like 3.5 by 3.5. And then what I did was I used some Steam Light fusible web for the back of the fabric. Okay, and then you put that on the back of the fabric. You use a dry iron. And then I pinned the shape on top of the fabric, but I always make sure that this is a little bigger and this is a little bigger. And then using these little scissors, they're perfect for applique, I cut out around the fabric, and then I put it in the position on the art quilt using a dry iron. I ironed it on. I usually like to put, if I'm especially going to be using light fabric, I'll put another piece of fabric on top and iron on that. So this way this doesn't get dirty from the iron if my iron has some residue left over on it from a prior project. And then I cut a piece of batting that's larger than the circle that I cut and that I ironed on. And then I put it on the back side of the fabric. I pin it in place, usually use 1 or 2 pins. Do not use spray basting because then it makes it really hard to cut around the circle edge. So just use some pins, and then I will zigzag all the way around. As you could see, I zigzagged around the edge. I used a tighter stitch and a little wider. I think it was like a 3.5 for the width, to make sure that it holds. And I also use these great gloves. I got them at a fabric store many years back, but you could order these online, and they are the best gloves. They have never ripped or anything, and they have the grippers on it. Highly recommend these. And this is what it looks like with the batting on the back, and now I'm gonna cut around. So I always like to use these scissors, and you could get them online, when I'm cutting the actual shape of the circle with the Steam Light, okay? And but for the actual circle itself with the batting, because I don't want to cut the fabric, I'm using these scissors, and you could see how it kind of goes up the tip, and that's really good for cutting round shapes and curves. With batting and the fabric, you really, because it curves, you don't really cut into the fabric. But what happens if you actually make a mistake and you cut into the fabric? What do? So I like to think outside the box. So basically what I do is wherever that fabric is that may have a hole in it, what I do is I take that fabric and I cut a piece out, and then I use the Steam Light fusible web, and I cut 2 pieces. That's a little one that's going to be bigger than the hole, and the other that's going to be around that shape. And I add the Steam Light to both pieces. Now, for one of the pieces, what I do is I actually put that Steam Light, the sticky part, on the top front piece of the fabric, and then wherever that hole is, let's say there's a hole here, I would then take that, press it down, and then use a dry iron and then iron that down. And then the other piece where the Steam Light is on the back and it kind of fits that hole shape. I know it's hard to get it perfect for that little hole shape, but just get as close as you can. And then I'll use long nose tweezers, and I put that sticky piece wrong side down with the sticky piece facing down on the hole, and then I will use a dry iron and iron on that as well. And then what I do is later on, when you're ready to free motion quilt everything, you won't even see that little piece. And then you could even put like some rhinestones or something else around wherever the hole is if you want, as well as an option. But it happens sometimes when you're working in applique. And that's how you fix a little mistake. Well, I hope this inspires you to create something magical. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when you're ready to quilt this whole thing, you put another piece of batting underneath, one whole piece, so it goes underneath your puffy applique shape, and then you free motion quilt it, and then this actually puffs up completely. And you still quilt it, a little design, and that's how you get your puffy look. I hope this inspires you to create something magical.